All right, free radicals, it's Dave, and another fun day over on Facebook. I'm so close. I'm really close to just ditching Facebook. I mean, I did it and then I came back because I've got friends, I've got contacts over there. Messenger is kind of useful. Sometimes I take a phone call, like my daughter will call me on the Facebook Messenger thing, and it's a free call, right? So it is kind of pathetic that that's really the only reason I stay. But I went over there and I posted a graph. I posted a chart rather from the CDC. From the CDC VAERS site, I posted the latest information on adverse reactions. That's what I did. Okay. So I'm not going to mention numbers here on YouTube because I imagine the video will be taken down. But it's a pretty easy thing to find, and it comes directly from the Centers for Disease Control, which, is another acronym I really take umbrage with, but that's neither here nor there. Now, not one, not two, but three fact checks appeared. One basically said, well, yeah, but this is out of context. How is a chart out of context? What? I have to put another chart next to it that refutes the chart that is recording data? Look, the argument against VAERS, here's the argument against VAERS. And they kind of put this out there. Well, anybody can report to VAERS. VAERS is kind of open source. And yeah, I mean, and they're probably just making these numbers up, right? Not according to a Harvard study. There was a Harvard study from about 10 years ago that said VAERS, based on actual data that Harvard managed to acquire, VAERS only reported about 1% of all adverse events, 1%. So there's a number on VAERS, starts with a 1, and then there's a 7, and then there's a 1, and then there's an 8, and then there's a 3. I'm just going to stop there. Okay, that's the number of people who apparently didn't agree at all with Dr. Fauci's recommendations. And I don't mean mentally assent to them, I mean physically. Those people aren't here anymore. They're gone. And according to Harvard, that is about 1%, could be only 1% of the total number. Now, every single day, when the news media will say 700,000, right? 720, 750, whatever it is. And by the way, they're keeping a running total rather than restarting the clock on January 1st. They're keeping a running total. It should be a yearly total, right? Maybe you could see year over year, see if we're doing better this year than last year, which apparently we're not. So my hunch is this is why they don't want to reset the clock. Because guess what happened this year that didn't happen last year? Pfizer. This video brought to you by Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So, and probably might be, you might see an ad running before or during the video. So anyway, I post this thing and they fact check it once, lacking context. It's a chart. How does a chart lack context? I'm really befuddled by this. Someone needs to help me understand. Okay, this comes from the CDC. So you put the chart out there, and then you get one fact check, then you get another box below it, which you're supposed to click on that box. See, because if you're looking at the box that I posted, right, they want your eyes to go a little south so you could see their wonderful article refuting the chart. I don't understand. What's the context? I mean, where's the missing context here? I don't understand it. So you're going to debunk the CDC's methodology here. Then you know what they ought to do? They ought to stop publishing this information. I think it's just there because they've got to post something, and it's right. It definitely isn't accurate. It's definitely under-reporting, according to Harvard, right? Harvard did the study. Do you trust Harvard? I don't know. I think I trust Harvard more than I trust the CDC, right? And hey, why would the CDC lie to us? They have our best interests at heart. They want to control disease, right? That's what CDC is. Do no harm. Well, no, that's not part of their creed, but that used to be kind of an oath that physicians would kind of take. But we've discovered that that's out the window, and they don't care. The only thing they do no harm with is they do no harm to their wallets. That's the only thing they do no harm about. This whole thing has become so ridiculous. It's so, Winston Smith. Hi, 2 + 2 is 4. You're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to post stats. I mean, do I want to scare people? Yeah, I do. I actually do want to scare people. Or at least I want to put some fear into their just lemming-like behavior. But I don't know if you can wake someone up at this point. Here's this number I posted. Yeah, but that's, that has a lot of problems with it. 17,183. 17,183. And then the total number of events is like almost 900K. 900K. But we got 5 to 11-year-olds coming up. Brought to you again by Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. And Dr. Fauci. Folks, when I've been asking this since this started, when does this end? When does it end? Here in the United States, we have done such a piss poor job from start to finish, from telling people, we'd like to help you here at the hospital, but nothing we can do. We're all kind of waiting for Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. So, there's nothing else that can be done at this stage. So you just go home. This is the United States. This is the brilliance of the healthcare system. On a little tangent the other day, I heard Jimmy Dore, who I like, but he says, if people had Medicare for all, wait a sec, wait for it. Okay. Now, the concept of giving someone healthcare who doesn't have healthcare is very decent, very humanitarian, but how is it not going to be authoritarian? Yes, we will allow you to have this Medicare program, this free Medicare, and see this sharp, shiny object? Unless you do this sharp, shiny object kind of thing, you're not going to get the free Medicare for all. Who's going to administer that program? And they already hold all these government things over your head if you don't behave the way they want you to. So as much as I think it is a decent, caring, even loving thing to do to get someone some health care, right? It's going to come with strings. See, this is why I've kind of abandoned all the progressive stuff. How can you fix that problem? Well, a local co-op, a local community health center, something where you can get some health care on a sliding scale, which I think those health centers actually already exist. But if you want to expand it, I don't have a problem with that if you have a way to fund it, and where there's local control, like the citizens have control over this, and not some bureaucrat in DC, not some authoritarian, not something that the president of the United States can then just say, well, you've got to behave this way. I mean, look at what they're doing in the military. Look at all the private industries too, where they're getting told that, hey, Here's your deadline. You're over 100 people in this company. Tough luck. And the president said it the other day. He said, I don't really care about police and firefighters and those frontline nurses last year. Remember, they were heroes. Remember how they were parading them and telling everybody how great they were. And now this year, they're all getting fired, or a bunch of them. Many of them who have decided, not to do the thing. Now, what's interesting too is that those people who are in the business, right? They're in the healthcare business. The question might be, what do they know? But nobody's asking that question. It's not like they're detached. It's not like, they're auto mechanics. They actually work in the hospital. And again, that wasn't a jab at, wrong word. That wasn't a knock at, mechanics. I'm just saying they're not in the hospital. So these people are pretty close to their jobs. So if this is amazing, it should be 100% compliance. They should be rushing and running. Instead, they're willing to get fired. That should send in. You think they saw the chart that I posted over on Facebook? Yeah, I bet you some of them had to. You look, folks, alternative media, it is a thing. The other platforms, they're starting to take off. I heard there's going to be a partnership between Rumble and Locals. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, you've got Jimmy Dore, and these are kind of lefties, right? Well, Tulsi isn't, but Jimmy Dore, Glenn Greenwald, and I bet you there will be other people over there. People like, maybe Max Blumenthal, or I don't know. There are a few decent people on the left that haven't abandoned reality yet. Although I heard Noam Chomsky did, right? Surprise, surprise. Well, he was the guy who co-wrote the book about manufactured consent. And then he became a bit of a folk hero for a while, but apparently he's gone the route of Keith Olbermann. So anyway, just getting back to the whole Facebook thing. So you might be able to save someone's life, right? Because they say, well, if you do this, you might save someone's life, or it might go the opposite direction. What I'm arguing for is informed consent. And I did a video about this. And I had an argument, by the way, on Twitter with a PhD. I'm not saying she wasn't a PhD, but I found out later on in the thread that she suffered from anger management issues, right? And she told me, I don't care who pays for this, meaning the drugs and the vaccines. She didn't care who paid for it, so long as it just happened. Weird stuff. And again, this goes over to neoliberal progressivism, that sort of train of thought. I don't care who pays for it. Well, the government's paying for it. We're paying for it supposedly, or the Federal Reserve is printing money. And then, we're all paying for it now because it's called inflation. Gas prices have gone up like 60%, in addition to the stupid policies that the so-called commander-in-chief is instituting. It's kind of all tied together, isn't it? It really is. So you post a chart, and the chart is kind of like, fairly concrete in nature. It's not something that you can just, hey, those aren't really the numbers. You're right. The numbers are actually a lot higher, but you're afraid of this lowball number that they have to at least attempt to do to make it look like they're actually paying attention to those people who haven't exactly had a great time of it. All right, whether they're still alive or whether they're now incapacitated or have a lifelong illness, all of these things are important. And every single last one of them should be meticulously documented and reported. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is only a small percentage of them are being reported, and they still don't want you to see it. They still don't want you to see it because they can't even argue, because that number, which I believe is way underreported, is more than double or triple all of the events that happened throughout this program for the last 30 years. And nobody bats it, like the news media. Oh, Yeah, we've heard about that site, and we've heard that anybody can report to it, and it's really not reliable. So even if that number is 17,183, even if I gave you that number and that number is off, wouldn't you want to take a look at it and see and scroll through it? Because honestly, back when we had actual news, that would have been the biggest breaking story of the century. I mean, we lost what, 3,000 on 9/11? We lost 3,000. And people were at ground zero. People were paying tribute. People would read the names aloud. What's different? Tell me what happened? I mean, from a Christian standpoint, I'm thinking, yeah, human life, not a big deal anymore, right? And you could even go into that argument about what happened in 1973 and how that kind of cheapened it. I mean, maybe that's kind of a narrow argument, like poor extrapolation, however you want to phrase it or term it. But something happened where it's all now expendable. And that's why you've got these crazy, wacky theories out there where it seems as though this could be some kind of I don't know, extermination thing or population reduction thing, or and nobody addresses that. They don't say you're a tinfoil hat. They just kind of go right past it, because you think to yourself, okay, well, what's the motivation? Well, we have to get everybody to do this. Why? What's the urgency? We've seen that much of this has not worked. None of it has worked. And I can do a video, but not here, about the countries that have done it and where they stand right now. And we haven't hit the live wild viruses yet. We haven't even hit that. We're in the lull. All right. You're probably going to start to see the northern tier of states and places all around the world that are more northern hemisphere. Maybe some bad stuff is going to happen. I literally pray that this doesn't happen and that I'm continuously wrong. Because as you go down this road and you learn some information, you say, okay, file it away. I don't know if that's true or not. Sounds crazy. I mean, the thing I heard today about how this whole thing is engineered, and I mean, it's if 1/10 of it is true, then we're really screwed. Because like in the days of Noah, people are eating and drinking and they're merry, and some of them, because they did the thing so they could get their life back, even though they're still wearing a medical device and still worried and stressed out and mad at you because you didn't do the thing, right? They're mad at you, even though they did. What is that? Like buyer's remorse? Like, come commiserate with me. You're not commiserating with me, and you don't understand how important it is for you to be as miserable as I am. That's what this is about. This is about misery. Misery loves company. No, I don't want to be miserable. Look, if I'm going down, if we're all going down, we need to go down with a fight. With a big fight, like fireworks and explosions. I'm not saying you bomb anything. It's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor, right? So anyway, all that from the fact, and look, Facebook, me and Facebook we're almost done with. My wife is on it constantly. She does it because the memes are sometimes very creative and she laughs and it's funny. But I think we're in a time that's really, really serious. And if we're not able to freely share and exchange information, then most of this is for naught. Most of it's for nothing. There's no point to it. We've got to be able to communicate kind of like the underground, And I don't know, maybe this particular channel will go away soon because, again, I'm going to continue to kind of be on the edge because this is the most important thing in our lifetime. And we can't talk about it. Republicans, by the way, the only one that's doing a good job, a couple of people, Ron DeSantis, Thomas Massie, Governor Abbott, a little bit from Texas. I know there's a couple of Republican governors out there that are sort of okay, but they're just okay enough not to upset their relationship with, Moderna or whoever they're in tight with. See, I don't think drug companies should be running the country. I don't think unappointed bureaucrats from the CDC ought to be running the country. I don't think Dr. Fauci should be president of the United States. Seriously. And it's not that much of a metaphor. This is what's going on. And he was kind of the president with Dr. Birx as vice president last year under Trump and Pence. I'm equally ticked off at Trump because Trump allowed and pushed this. People will say, okay, but Trump would opt you out. And so maybe, but the ball got rolling, and then he's not going to be able to control 50 state governors and people like the governor of New Jersey, who I think is he's trying to inoculate everybody. Everybody's going to get it. Or you can't live in New Jersey. I don't know. I've heard some crazy things of what's going to take place. And remember, these people told you early this year that they would never mandate this stuff. They would never mandate it. And here we are. Here we are. So to me, this is the most important issue of our lifetime. For you libertarians, and I'm friends with many on Twitter, gentleman who is running for Congress over on the East Coast here in Florida, seems like a nice man, but he's posting stuff about criminal justice reform and about police reform. And I'm sitting there going, seriously? Seriously? The biggest issue of our lifetime, lockdowns, mandates, losing your liberty, losing your freedom. Those 3 or 4 issues have to be front and center. Decentralizing the power from DC and bringing it back to the states and back to the counties and back to the towns and back to the people. That's the way the Constitution is designed. I don't care about drug legalization. I really don't. I mean, I do, but I don't. Yes, legalize things like, CBD, which pretty much is everywhere now, and THC for you hardcore people. I really don't care. That's not the big issue of our time. Right now, it's about fending off this attack from within and from other countries, most likely. I know the libertarians don't like to talk about China. We're supposed to be all linked and free and trade with them, and maybe we can and maybe we will. But if they're responsible for the biggest thing that's ever happened in the history of humanity, then they need to be held accountable. And I don't know what that looks like. Here's what it might look like in the short term. No more dealing with those. And people will say you're crazy. I don't know. We're so intertwined with China. And China knew that. China knew it. It's like Facebook knows that you've got friends, you've got memories, and you use Messenger. And it's the same concept. China knows that we use them and they use us. So there's no escaping either concept. I mean, I think it's easier to quit Facebook than to quit China, quite honestly. I mean, it would be nice if China wasn't, causing these problems. And apparently we did all the funding and we sent it over there. Maybe to make them look bad. What do we want to start, World War III that will never end? I mean, Dr. Fauci, he should have been fired last year. If Trump was such a tough guy, he should have fired Fauci. I mean, he talked about it a little bit. He said, if I get reelected, no. If you wanted to get reelected, you should have fired him prior, right? And yes, I think, if you look at the vote totals and you do the audits and, what we're not ever going to find out. It's kind of like the JFK assassination. They covered up all the details. They were going to release it. We'll never know about what happened in 2020. We'll never know because it's a cover-up. It's a massive cover-up. You can't have people pulling boxes out from underneath tables at 2 a.m. and have it on video and then have them running the same ballots through a machine over and over again. You can't have that and think that it's a completely pure and perfect election. You can't, it just doesn't, no, sorry. So I know, way off topic here. The point I'm trying to make is that when you post a chart and the chart is not out of context, the chart is one page. This is the brilliance of the chart. It just has all the numbers on it. You look at it and then you think about it and you go, why are we still doing this? Why didn't we stop like in 1976? We stopped when the number hit 26. We stopped. Why? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And then the conspiracy theories, and some of them, like someone said to me, you just wait 6 months and your conspiracy theory will no longer be a conspiracy theory. It will be truth.